The movie begins with a scene in a restaurant where many dead bodies are seen. To understand what happened there and how the people died, the story shifts to a day in the past. Nancy, the main character, is shown in the fields taking a pregnancy test. The result turns out to be positive, which terrifies her as she is unmarried and had not planned for this. Worried and tense, she heads to her father's restaurant where she works as a manager. On the way, her car runs out of fuel, so she decides to walk the rest of the way. During her walk, she meets Bobby, an employee at the restaurant, who offers her a lift on his bicycle. They reach the hotel together. Upon reaching, her father informs her that she must manage the hotel that night as he has a meeting to attend. Nancy nods in agreement, believing she can handle it. Coop mentions that he has asked Jack to stay and help her, which angers Nancy because she dislikes Jack. She requests her father to let Bobby stay instead, but he refuses, saying he has already made arrangements with Jack. As Nancy steps out of the office, she starts feeling nauseous and vomits. She steps outside for fresh air and finds Jack there, smoking. Seeing her condition, Jack realizes she is pregnant. He asks if her father knows the truth, but Nancy gives no response. Just then, Coop arrives and she panics. However, he doesn't notice her condition. He merely instructs Jack to treat customers well, and mentions that Nancy will assist him. Unable to hold back, Nancy questions her father about the urgent meeting. Coop reveals he has been feeling lonely since her mother's death and has decided to remarry. He is going to meet a woman that evening. This makes Nancy even more upset, knowing she will now have to share her father with someone else. Later, Nancy and Jack enter the hotel. Everything seems normal until a gang of young boys arrive and start causing chaos outside the hotel. They rev their bikes, make noise, and even kill a rabbit outside. Concerned that customers might leave, Nancy gets angry and goes out to confront them. She warns them to leave, but instead, the boys enter the hotel wearing masks and mockingly place orders. Frustrated, Nancy threatens to call the police. When the boys refuse to leave, she pretends to make the call. This scares them off, but one of them warns her they will return. The humiliation makes others laugh at her, fueling her anger further. She gathers the entire staff and asserts her authority as their manager. She demands respect and reminds them that following her orders is their duty because she is the owner. Jack challenges her, saying everything belongs to her father, not her, and accuses her of taking undue credit. He adds that others are more capable than her. This crosses Nancy's limit. She fires Jack on the spot for his insolence. Jack is shocked and says she has no right to do that, but Nancy insists that she is now the manager, and her word is final. Defeated, Jack angrily removes his apron and leaves. Nancy, overwhelmed by emotions, heads to the washroom to calm herself. She washes her face and tries to relax. Outside the washroom, Bobby is waiting for her. He offers to stay the night and help her since Jack is no longer around and it wouldn't be safe for her to manage alone. This angers Nancy even more as she feels Bobby is pitying her and trying to get close out of sympathy. Nancy scolds Bobby, telling him bluntly that he is not her type and there is no need to impress her to become friends. These words deeply hurt Bobby and he quietly leaves, walking away from her. Soon, the staff shift ends and Nancy is left alone at the hotel. She is responsible for managing the night shift by herself. She begins by cleaning the place, and when no customers arrive, she starts talking to her father on the phone. During the call, she informs him that she has fired Jack. Her father is shocked, but Nancy explains that Jack disrespected her and insulted her in front of everyone. She had no other option. Worried, her father reminds her to stay alert throughout the night and to call him immediately if anything goes wrong. Nancy, however, remains fearless. She plays music and resumes her work, trying to enjoy the peaceful night. But the peace doesn't last long. She spots the same gang from earlier outside the hotel. Seeing them again makes her furious. She announces through the speaker, ordering them to leave immediately or she will call the police. That moment, she realizes all the doors and windows of the hotel are open. She fears that if the gang tries to harm her, there won't be enough time for the police to arrive. Quickly, she begins shutting all the doors and windows. Once secured, she calls the police and reports that a gang is threatening her outside the hotel. Police assure her that an officer will be dispatched. As soon as the call ends, loud banging noises begin on all sides of the hotel. Terrified, Nancy hides under a counter. Through several minutes, the knocking suddenly stops. She feels a moment of relief, only for the knocking to resume again. This time, she peeks from under the counter and sees a sheriff, a police officer, outside the door. Relieved, she quickly opens the door for him. Upon entering, the officer tells her he needs to inspect inspect the entire place. He thoroughly searches the hotel, but finds no one else there, not even outside the building. After checking the location, he reports back to the station that there is no visible threat. He suspects that the girl might be imagining things and decides to stay for a while to comfort her on her father's behalf. He then asks Nancy to make him some coffee and sits down. His gaze starts to make Nancy uncomfortable. After some time, the officer approaches her and tells her to come with him to the police station, saying that the gang involved has been escalating their criminal activities. Just as he begins to drag her along, the same gang of boys attacks from behind and brutally kills the sheriff. Witnessing this, Nancy becomes extremely frightened. To save herself, she hides in the garage. She is terrified and clueless about how or whom to call for help. That moment, fate turns in her favor. Bobby arrives at the hotel, as he was already on his way back. Seeing him gives Nancy hope. She quickly hushes him and brings him inside the hotel. Meanwhile, the gang has also entered the hotel. Nancy manages to message her friend, asking her to either send help or come herself. Before Nancy and Bobby can make any move, the gang captures both of them and ties them up. Car keys lie near Nancy, but her tied hands prevent her from reaching them. One of the gang members tapes her mouth and hands and locks her in a room. Inside the room, Nancy somehow manages to free her hands. Still terrified, she grabs a knife from a bag and stabs the attacker in self-defense. When Nancy removes his mask, she is shocked. It's one of the employees from her own hotel. Moments later, Bobby enters the room with untied hands. Nancy realizes the bitter truth. Bobby is part of this group. These aren't outsiders, but her own colleagues who are now seeking revenge. Bobby, once her friend, has also joined them after feeling insulted by her earlier words. To explain how all this came to be, the scene shifts into a flashback. Jack, furious over being fired, vows to take revenge. After dropping his colleagues home, he picks up Pete and goes to the same gang of young troublemakers from earlier that day. Jack pulls out a knife and injures one of the gang members, scaring the rest. He then plays loud music and forces the group to follow his orders. Handing a gun to Pete, Jack commands him to shoot the gang members, but Pete fails to do so, allowing the boys to escape. Jack later tells Pete to meet him at the restaurant that evening. After the gang flees, Jack takes their masks and clothes, then meets with the rest of his colleagues. He tells them he knows Nancy has hurt them all, that she is a terrible manager, and offers them a chance to join him in taking revenge. Resentment toward Nancy runs deep among the staff, and they all agree. The entire plan unfolding in the present is orchestrated by Jack. Bobby joins the plan, believing Jack only intends to scare Nancy, not harm her. Initially, the group focuses on frightening her, but when Nancy actually calls the police officer, the group hides, but later, to protect themselves, they collectively kill the police officer. At this point, Bobby distances himself from Jack's plan. He removes his mask and rushes to help Nancy, driven by a sense of sympathy and affection for her. The scene shifts back to the present, where Nancy, after learning the truth, is filled with rage. Pete, the boy Nancy had earlier attacked, lies wounded. The group brings him inside the hotel and discusses calling for help to save his life, but they struggle with the decision. Who would help them in such a police case? Meanwhile, Bobby spots Nancy's car keys and quietly picks them up. Just then, one of Jack's accomplices informs him that Nancy has escaped. Jack, furious, orders everyone to catch her immediately and tells Bobby to chase her too. Instead, Bobby punches Jack, turning against him. Elsewhere, Coop tries calling the hotel, but no one answers. Meanwhile, Nancy smartly throws boiling water on a gang member chasing her, burning his face severely. The boy eventually dies from the burns. Nancy quietly heads to the restroom and sees Bobby lying injured. She sneaks under the table to help him, but at that moment, her friend arrives at the hotel. Shocked by the scene, the friend panics and flees, not even bothering to call the police. Nancy retrieves her car keys. Seizing an opportunity, she escapes through the main door, hiding from Jack's eyes. But just as she reaches the exit, Jack catches her from behind, grabs her by the hair and stabs her in the back. He drags her body back inside the hotel. Jack believes everyone else is now dead, and he alone has survived. He removes his clothes, pretending to be an innocent witness, and calls the police to report what just happened. His plan is to leave the city and start a new life. But the twist comes, Nancy is still alive. Despite her injuries, she pulls out the knife from her body and drags herself toward Bobby, who is now dead. Seeing his lifeless body, she breaks down in tears. Bobby was the only one who truly cared for her. Fueled by vengeance, she musters strength, gets into her car and drives to Jack's house. Jack is caught off guard when someone knocks on his door. He doesn't expect visitors. Upon opening the door, he sees Nancy. Without wasting a moment, Nancy stabs him in the neck, killing him and avenging everything. Weak and barely holding on, she manages only a few more steps before collapsing. Memories of her mother fill her mind. Just then, a car stops nearby. Her father arrives. He had seen her car and followed the trail. Seeing Nancy in such a condition, Coop panics. He assures her he'll take her to a doctor and promises that nothing will happen to her. But Nancy calms him down and with her last bit of strength reveals the truth. She is pregnant. And with that, the story ends.